All right, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today. This is our first Business Bites interview with my amazing clients. So depending on where you are, grab your lunch, your snack. If you've got a coffee or whatever's in your cup, no judgment. I'm so glad you're here. We're here with Edward Messina, who's the founder and CEO of Messina Medical Services. And he is passionate about protecting patients and healthcare providers from the dangers of prescription meds and illicit drug use. And he's got over a decade of experience in drug monitoring, which has made him a valuable resource in the pain management and orthopedic community across Southern California. And in his spare time, just a little bit about Edward, he loves to spend quality time with his wife and 3 boys. And they love to do weekend adventures, watching shows, playing sports, and going to Padres and Aztecs games, if I'm not mistaken.
That does happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eddie, for being here with us today. And thanks to all of you that are joining us live. We hope you get some tips, tricks, tools, some inspiration from Eddie sharing his journey, and that you can continue to grow your business. So Eddie, I just want to ask you, when you started your business, and remind me, when did you start your business? How long have you been in business?
Messina Medical came around in 2019. I've been in the industry since 2014.
Yeah. Yes.
10 years already.
Just a couple years. And so when you think about when you started the business versus where you are now, when you started, what were your goals when you started this business?
That is a great question. And first, let me say it's an honor to be the first to kick off Business Bites. I'm really excited. So thanks for having me, Coach Julie. But back to your question, my goals when I first started was just to get a paycheck and pay all my bills. And that was it. I didn't have any vision of having a team or anything that would really look like a actual business. It was just more like I created another job for myself.
Yeah.
So that was my goal. That's changed.
Yeah. And so I guess to date, what shifted for you in your goals that you have now and where you've come to date?
I think, over time you build confidence that you could take on more and do more. And you also start seeing the value that you bring to, in particular, this industry, the drug monitoring, the drug testing industry. So I think I just organically started to expand. But honestly, it was our discussions early on that we had together that really helped me shift my mindset from a manager mindset. And I've been a manager my whole life. I managed restaurants. I've managed field marketing teams. I'm good at it, but I kind of was the manager of Messina Medical, and shifting from that perspective to an owner or a CEO of a company was a difficult transition for me. And I think after, reading and discussing and talking about what it really means to be a business owner, then I started to change my goals, change my outlook, brought on help, had an org chart, had standing operating procedures, things that, I didn't have before. So
the systems and the structure of the business.
Correct.
Sure.
And it's still a work in progress,
Yes,
it's
always. Yeah. For every entrepreneur, I think. And so when you talked about shifting your mindset from, paying the bills, right? It's everybody, when you start a business, it's on an opportunity that presents itself, or you're an expert in the industry, or you want to do things differently in an industry. And it's sort of, okay, first step is just making sure I can cover the bills, cover myself, survival, right? And so you reach that point and it was like, okay, if you're in business to pay the bills, that's all you're ever going to do. So it sounds like you came to this point where like, okay, now what? And that you knew this business could be more than it was. And it required you to be a different kind of business owner than you were. Would you say that that was the shift?
Yeah, that's a huge shift, and that's spot on.
Mm-hmm.
I remember some of our early conversations. I considered my paycheck as profit.
Mm.
And it took me a while to really understand that that's just a business expense, really. And so just kind of understanding the financial part of paying myself versus putting stuff away as profit in the business was, completely separate.
Yeah. And last year was your highest revenue to date and your highest profit to date, right?
Yeah, that was a good year for sure. Yeah.
I love how you light up. You're like, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to take time to sometimes recognize some of the success we've had.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some challenges on top of that as well.
Yeah. Yes. As goes with business, right? But so was there, well, yes, in thinking about last year as your most successful year, at least financially, what do you think worked?
I think, first and foremost, we had goals, annual, quarterly, even monthly. And so obviously that helps because you know what you're trying to hit, your measures. Some people call it KPIs. We had our transaction goals, we had our team goals. And we had those down on paper, and it was something that was always on top of mind. So that helped. And then two, we just really had a consistent year. We had very consistent service for our clients. We didn't have any turnover. So my team was consistent. We were grinding. We were rise and grind every day, and it paid off. So consistency was huge. Clear goals was huge.
Yeah. So having a map, understanding your destination and then having a map to get there, which is, you're so great about coming to Growth Club every quarter and sitting down and making a plan and working through that plan, whether in coaching and on your own, but involving your team. It sounds like that was huge. And I know one of the areas that you looked at is how to more involve your team in the growth of the company and keeping clients happy, and how much more you could help your clients in that capacity. And so some of those decisions I know you brought on a couple more team members as well as, hiring an admin. So, getting into a bigger office, right? There were some big decisions, some financial decisions, as well as operational decisions that you made last year. So as a business owner, how do you approach decision-making like that in your business? What's your process you go through?
Yeah, just some decision-making in business will always be instincts. And so, I always want to trust my instincts and my gut. But as far as, maybe trying to put a blueprint to it, always working with the end in mind. So what's the end goal for Messina Medical? And I think kind of what some of my end goals are, right? So, knowing the end definitely makes decisions of how we get there, at least clear. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's more clear what path we need to go. And in addition to that, we have a mission statement, we have a brand, right? And so decisions have to be on brand. For some clients or a product like for example, like an energy drink or something like that, they have a brand and everything they do revolves around that brand. Same thing with Messina Medical. We have a mission. to protect patients and protect the physicians and the private practices. And so all the decisions we make should be in line with that. It should be about saving $1 or, trying to make an extra buck if it compromises that. So that's usually how I go about it.
You gave me goosebumps just thinking about the mission where, as the business owner, you're going to come across opportunities that present themselves, or, and thinking about hiring, does somebody align with their character? Do they align with the company? And do they align with the mission? So keeping at your core the mission of the organization, the vision of where you are taking the business, and that your team is helping to get there. So I appreciate you saying that, because I think, sometimes when we lose track or lose focus, and we're in mid-year right now. Whenever you're watching this right now, we're in June, which is mid-year, and some of my clients are getting into this mode where like, I'm feeling a lack of motivation, and coming into that, it's getting back to, why do you do what you do? Why are you in business? What is your mission? What do you hear? What is your purpose, essentially? So I appreciate you mentioning that, because I think it's important to go back and remember. And as far as you mentioned, with your admin, I know that was one of the things that we worked through pretty early on. So out of curiosity, and I imagine that a lot of people who are listening right now, who are business owners, are thinking like, when is it the right time to hire? It feels like it's the right time to hire. I don't know the first steps to hire. What would you say would be some good first steps in hiring that admin who can help be your right-hand person?
For me was the time study that we did, and looking how much time I was spending doing things that were more managerial or that were admin type duties that wasn't really moving the needle for the business. So when I looked at that time study, I was like, wow, I spend 4 hours a day doing stuff that has nothing to do with running a company. I was managing a company. I was doing managerial type stuff. So that's when I realized that I needed somebody. And then, of course, is the budget and the cost of hiring somebody. And that's always the scary part for a business owner, to commit to, whatever, hours that you're going to bring somebody on. So, me and you, we worked through some budget scenarios of what it would cost to have somebody work 20 hours, 30 hours, 40 hours. And, could we offset that with growth, with, more transactions? And when you break it down like that, it wasn't so scary. For my company in particular, I think it was only like 15, 20 extra, tests / transactions a month. Then I could have myself an admin. And so when I looked at it from that perspective, the decision became really easy to bring somebody on. And I started them out, my very first person that I brought on, that wasn't a part of the original team. I started them off really slow. I think it was like $500 a month just to train and work a couple days a week. And then they grew from that into a much bigger role. So don't be afraid to start small, start a few hours a week and build into it.
Sure. Well, what I heard too was, looking at what could this person be doing and how much time. So by looking at your time and analyzing where you're spending your time and analyzing the A, B, C, D level activities and what you can offload in that C and D level that aren't necessarily revenue generating. And from there, also looking at, okay, how much more business do I need to bring in, but also how much more time is that alleviating for you to be able to do the things that need to be done as the CEO and the business owner to grow the business and get more business. I know when we first started working together, you were working in and some on the business, like 60+ hours a week. And, in hiring your admin, it was pretty cool as a coach to witness, because one of your goals was to be able to coach and be present for your son's Little League team. And for you to be able to do that and have that goal achieved and be able to be present with your kids and doing these adventures and going to Padres games and things like that, you did it. And so how many hours a week would you say that you're working now on average?
Yeah, I mean, I probably have a typical work week in terms of 30, 40 hours a week where, away from my family and, at the office. But I feel like the time that I'm spent is being, it's more valuable for the company versus where I was spending it before.
Yeah.
So that in itself is priceless. But yeah, I think what I've found too is that I've found ways to kind of mix my personal and my business together. And not every business might not be able to do that, but for me, I like to golf. I like to go to baseball games. Well, that could be a business. That could be business. I can bring a client to a game. I could go golfing with, a potential client or even a sales rep or a contact. So you can kind of find ways to integrate the personal and the business, and it just doesn't feel like you're working, but that's actually some of the most valuable work that you're doing is networking, socializing.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And building those relationships while also doing something that you enjoy.
Getting out of the desk.
Yes.
The desk.
That's right. Awesome. And so as far as your industry, what do you see as some of the biggest opportunities for your business within the drug monitoring industry?
Well, for me in particular, I think there's a lot of opportunity outside of San Diego. And, San Diego is what I've known. I've grown up here my whole life. And that's where the majority of my clients are. But I realize that there's a ton of underserved communities when it comes to, drug monitoring, drug testing, Riverside, Imperial Valley, different areas of Los Angeles County that we could be in. Even Temecula, where you're at, I would say is somewhat underserved in that aspect.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's other states, Arizona, Nevada, that are nearby that could also be serviced. So for me, I think that's the big opportunity is just expanding my footprint and what we already do.
Yeah. Which you already have started to expand. So it's, you've definitely started growing in other markets around San Diego, but now because you have the model in San Diego works. And so now it's literally just replicating that to be able to serve more populations. What would you say is the gap that Messina Medical Services fills?
The gap between like the client and their kind of day-to-day stuff they have to do.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, nobody that I service or none of my clients, none of their main objective is to drug test their patient population. That's just not their main goal. They have so many other things that they're worried about, whether it's doing a surgery, whether it's managing their care, seeing patients. They're running businesses as well. All my clients are private practice, so they're running their own businesses. So they're managing budgets, they're hiring people, they're training people. They don't really have the time to think about drug monitoring and drug testing. So I think the biggest void we fill or the gap that we close for them is that we can do all of that for them and they don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
They just get the result in their patient chart when it's time for their next visit, and they can use that to make, treatment decisions without having to worry about how it actually got there.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest gap, I think, for sure. That we feel.
Absolutely. Well, it's you're essentially the liaison, but also you help, protect everyone, and also help doctors make better, even better decisions. So that's fantastic. So when you think about, the gap that you fill, looking ahead, what are your future goals for the business?
Great question. It's one that I think about often because it is a little scary to, I would say I have a lot of eggs in one basket when it comes to my industry. We're really just singular focus right now on drug testing, drug monitoring. So I would love to diversify into other type of diagnostic testing, whether it be, blood or, aging panels, hormones, DNA, different things like that. You have to really find a need that the client, you got to find the need, and then you got to, be able to fill the need and have it make financial sense. And I haven't quite found the right product that makes sense for Messina Medical and our mission and, our brand. Always on the hunt for that. But I think what I'm passionate about is expanding the idea of protecting patients and physicians and expanding it to protecting families. Because as we know, fentanyl, opiates, these are a big problem in everyday lives for people, whether it's a child or a brother or, even a mom or a dad that are struggling with addiction, alcohol. Mixing that alcohol with opiates is dangerous. So how can I expand my protection? I have some ideas and some concepts that I think are going to be worth exploring in later this year and into the future. And somehow tying that into other resources and programs like counseling and rehab, because they're out there. There's counselors out there. There's a lot of great rehab centers out there. How do we connect them to families and people? So that's kind of the vision I think I have for the next project for Messina Medical.
I can't wait to dig in with you.
We're gonna have to do some digging for sure.
Yes. Well, and from a business perspective, you mentioned it, diversifying your revenue, right? But in that, you're also fueling your soul, essentially, by thinking about how much more can I help people, other people, and taking that into families, and such heavy but important and timely topics. And so it'll be exciting and interesting to explore that with you and how that could look. So, yay.
I definitely think about all the opportunities out there. I think that would be the one I'd be most passionate about. Because I think everybody has somebody in their family that probably has gone through some type of struggles with addiction.
Sure. Or knows families who are going through it now.
And it's scary, and so how do you help? How do you know? First is knowing, like, how do you know this person is struggling with addiction? So you got to know, and that's where the testing comes in. And then once you know, now what can we do? What are the steps? What do we do next? It's counseling, it's rehab, it's therapy, it's whatever those are.
Having access to those resources.
Right.
Great. Well, I can't wait to see what comes. And I'm sure everybody who's watching is going to be able to follow your journey and see how this pans out. But I want to ask before we head out, who are you looking to connect with that you want to help and serve?
Yeah, I mean, where we're at right now, I mean, the people that I want to connect with and be a resource for are anybody that is a private practice physician or psychologist that is prescribing drugs, that is, controlled substances, and is trying to maybe alleviate some of the liability that goes along with prescribing meds, but also wants to make sure that their patients are taking the meds, that these medications are not ending up on the streets, for people that it wasn't intended for, and as well as making sure that their patients are not taking other substances that they're not supposed to be mixing with these drugs that they're prescribing. So, well, that tends to be pain management. That tends to be perhaps on a smaller level, psychologists and people prescribing antidepressants, things of that nature. But it can also be people doing surgery. So orthopedic surgeons that are, having to put people to sleep in order to do a procedure. My program would be great for them to make sure that they have a peace of mind before they do surgery on somebody, that they're not on methamphetamine, they're not on illicit drugs, because that could potentially interfere with the surgery process. Sure.
Okay, great. And then how can people reach you? What's your contact info?
Well, my cell phone.
Really,
Eddie at messinamedical.com would be the easiest way to reach me right now.
Okay.
I'm also on LinkedIn, of course. You'll see me on LinkedIn, so you can message me there. We are working on that website. I know Coach Julie has been pushing me to take that website and get it going and have another touch point. But Eddie at messinamedical.com and LinkedIn would be the two best ways to touch base with me right now.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Eddie, for your time and sharing your journey and expertise as a business owner and CEO. Really appreciate it. And for those of you that were joining us today, thank you for joining us. And I'd be curious to hear what your top BFOs, blinding flashes of the obvious, were for you. So feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll see you next time.